Welcome to Better with Art. I'm Melinda, and I'm here to encourage you to reclaim your creativity and practice creative self-care with weekly small art prompts that can be done in an art journal or on paper if you don't have one. This week I am revisiting what was probably my favorite project from last year. As mentioned last week, I'm bringing back some fall color projects that I love, despite my mixed feelings about the season itself. If you've been around a while, you may remember that I usually use Crayola watercolors in the Basic 8 for art journal art because reclaiming your creativity doesn't need to cost a lot of money. However, oh dear, I'm having trouble finding the Basic 8 just sold by itself on Amazon. And as I want to keep things as easy as possible for you to find, I'm trying out some other inexpensive Basic 8s that are easily found on Amazon. So unlike I usually do with my watercolor blobs that will be pumpkins, I'm starting out with each of the colors, just their straight color. To get a feel for how they look, and also be a good way to illustrate how mixing complementary colors mutes the colors and creates a gorgeous autumn color palette. I am using some inexpensive Artist Loft paintbrushes I got on sale at some point. We are revisiting Watercolor Blob pumpkins, and I can say one thing about, let's see, oh shoot, that was foolish. I know I looked at this, I think this is the praying, yes. One thing I prefer about it over the Crayola so far is the purple, that's for sure. The other colors, I do like that the blue and the green are more muted. The red is a little dull, but overall I am liking these colors better to how garish the Crayola can look straight out of the box. So now, as I mentioned, color mixing and complementary colors. Red and green, orange and blue, yellow and purple. Mixing them combining complementary colors sort of cancels the other out. And yes, it can create mud. It can also create some gorgeous grays, but also some very lovely autumnal colors. Now, these aren't ideal for pumpkins, of course, but that's okay. Who says our art journal pumpkins have to be hyper-realistic? Well, hyper-realistic isn't anything like anything I do in my art journal, and that's okay. Our art journals are a private place where we can express ourselves and experiment without fear of what others will think. Now here we're getting to a color that's ideal for blobby pumpkins, for a muted autumn color palette. But these are interesting colors that I like a lot, but they're kind of gross for, for pumpkins. That's okay. Let's see what happens when we add a little more yellow to this yellow and purple combination. that's interesting. And harkens back to some of last year's pumpkins. I think I'll add a little more green to this one. That wasn't quite enough green to really be noticeable. That's okay. That's a little too much. But I'm really liking these colors, even if they're not quite the pumpkin colors from last year. We can move on to that, but for now, this is exploring. And I have to say, this is a great alternative to the Crayola. I think I prefer how these perform. So last year for the pumpkins, I broke out more from just the complementary colors. But again, I'm at the moment getting a feel for how these work. Wow, that was a lot of blue to add to that orange, but ooh, that's going to be a gorgeous color. I like that a lot. Watercolor blobs are surprisingly therapeutic to make. You do need a soft brush. And that's another thing I was going to test, is using the brush that comes with the set. Some of the Crayola brushes are too plasticky and rigid. This one looks like it could be quite good for watercolor blobs. So yes, if all you can afford right now is, oops, an inexpensive set of watercolors, the praying works very well and has a brush that is soft enough for watercolor blobs, which, as I said, are surprisingly therapeutic. Now you have two choices, well, more than two. You have some choices when you get to the end of painting your blobs. These are drying quite quickly. I'm surprised at how well these are drying right now. They do have to be completely dry before we move on to the next step. So if you are out of time for art making for today, you can come back to make your pumpkins. If you're not out of time, but you have other things to do, like I do, you can also let them sit. I need to go start some more laundry, and I'm going to have to go to a dentist appointment too. The other option is a hairdryer or heat tool. Okay, I'm back, and as promised, it's with another inexpensive basic 8 set of watercolors easily obtained on Amazon. I've also decided, after taking a look back at last year's video with my blobby pumpkins, to include that in this video because it shows more about the color mixing and the creation of the pumpkins. So far, I am liking the previous praying better than this crazy art. For one thing, the brush was softer, and this packaging seems less sturdy. And to be honest, it kind of bothers me that the colors are not in rainbow order. Just don't like this brush. Don't like the color. Going back to one of my brushes, and we'll try the red again. And yes, not rainbow order. Well, I don't think it's going to be necessary to keep testing these much to illustrate, well, illustrate. I'm testing these for the first time myself also, so I wasn't setting out to prove any point, just to demonstrate the use of this set of watercolors. And a bit about how they blend. I'll revisit the mixing complementary colors. There's very little color to these. I haven't used that much water. I guess I could have sprayed them ahead of time, so it would have been more the same type of test. I do see I am getting a little more color with letting the water sit in them a little more. Oh, that orange is, well, let's try the orange again. That is an improvement, but it's more like an intense yellow than an orange. Mixing it with the blue. Oops. Seem to have splashed some blue into my yellow. It also feels like there's very little paint there. This would have been blue, yes. Okay, so part of the failure in the test could be user error. But I am still more impressed with, I'm overall still more impressed with the praying over the crazy art. But again, it is improving as I am using them more similarly. I didn't realize what a big difference my just jumping in so quickly would make. That being said, these aren't performing as well as the praying, but if this is what you have easiest access to, you can, red, orange, yellow, green, you can still enjoy this project. I will have links to both brands in the description. Maybe you prefer this overall more muted color. Though I do have to say the brush is not as good as the other. So overall, if crazy art is what you have or have access to, it will work. I think I actually prefer the praying over the Crayolas I typically used, but that will be another thing to test over time, as one of the things I don't like about the Crayola is they get very gummy. I mean, it is very important always to make sure your paints are dry before you close them, but they still degraded in a way I didn't like. And they also had a tendency, if there was a thick area of paint, it could really mess up the tip of what I was drawing on them with. So current recommendation based on red, orange. This quick round of testing would be the praying. And now let's take a quick jump back to last year's blobby pumpkins, where I actually talk more about the creation of the blobs and the creation of the pumpkins. But I wanted to also keep this watercolor test for you also. Welcome to week 40 of the 52-week art journal journey. I'm Melinda, and I'm here to encourage you to reclaim your creativity and establish a healthy habit of creative self-care through my simple form of art journaling. Week 40. I don't know about you, but I can't believe how relatively little we have left of this year. I'm currently trying to absorb as much of the warmth that has returned to my area before the awful cold. And this week, I am doing something different than I planned for our small art project, but sticking with the fall colors theme from last week. You will need some watercolor paints and a micron pen or any type of black pen you have around. We are going to use our autumn colors to paint blobs. If I tell you that this week's art is inspired by someone on Instagram, you probably won't be surprised if you've been around a while to hear that I am again borrowing from one of my Instagram favorites, Andrea Nelson. If you haven't checked her out yet, you need to. I love how she understands the importance of art making to mental health. And I really like a lot of her art. So we are making, as she calls them, beautiful blobs. Slightly dissimilar from the artist that inspired her project like this. She didn't want to do just orange because that would be boring. So she did some color mixing. And yes, doing this, I was rinsing my brush. But I was cutting that part out because, because I decided to do this one twice for this week's video was way too long. You don't need to see me rinsing my brush, but the color mixing and what colors I'm adding, well, it's interesting to me. And if you'd like to have ideas about how to achieve various colors, I kept that in because, well, it's fun and interesting to watch. Our blobs. Our blobs are going to become pumpkins, which I think I forgot to mention, but also explains why the mention of orange. Don't overthink your blobs. Just make some colors that appeal to you. Yes, I did start with traditional orange as we are working with pumpkins. And, well, if you ever see a pumpkin in nature colored like some of these, that would be pretty cool. Unfortunately, some of them may look a little rotten, at least at this stage of this project. As I said, don't worry about it. Just have fun getting lost in painting watercolor blobs in any colors that make you happy. I was, again, working, at least relatively, within my autumn palette type colors, mixing complementary colors. But I really, really, really liked the orange pumpkins I had. So I decided that I would do another 2 pages with various orange-based colors. Each of them is going to be unique in color, just like it will be unique in shape. Remember, beautiful blobs. Put the pumpkin part out of your head as far as shape goes. Because really, pumpkins come in so many shapes. And personally, I've always been the most fond of the ones that are a little wonky. And maybe that's what we can do our journaling about this week. Things we like, things we enjoy, that may not be typical. But we don't require anyone's approval to enjoy what we enjoy. I think wonky pumpkins are cool. Sometimes I admit I'm embarrassed by some of the music I enjoy listening to. I don't want other people to hear me listening to it, I guess you could say. But that doesn't change the fact that I enjoy it. To be honest, sometimes there are things I stumble across that I enjoy and find out later are popular, that are more mainstream than I realized. I'm a little bit disappointed. But that's okay. We like what we like. We enjoy what we enjoy. The things that help us feel calm and relaxed vary for each of us. The things that help us deal with our depression or our anxiety. Not everyone is going to understand things we enjoy, and not everyone is going to understand things that help our mental health. And that's okay. I recently reshared a quote that had popped up in my Facebook memories. And that's the gist of it. The things that work for us, that help us get up and moving when it's hard, that make us feel like life is worth living when things just don't feel right, things that calm our anxiety and help us to function better in this world that can be very difficult at times. Not everyone is going to understand why certain things work for us, and that is okay, as long as you accept what works for you, with the caveat that it's not something unhealthy that only works in the moment, but in the long term makes things worse. That's an important distinction. Self-care is not about just spoiling yourself and catering to yourself. It's purposely and purposefully choosing things that make you healthier. After you have your beautiful blobs, and I'm hoping there are some wonky and fun ones and all sorts of shapes, it's time to make them into pumpkins, which we do by just adding some lines and a stem. You can go back, or actually as you go, you can embellish them more with little curly vines and leaves. You can make some jack-o'-lanterns if you would like. I was focusing on just getting my shape and my stems in, and I did learn as I went along. I feel like by the time I got to the end of my second page, I was finally getting the hang of just the right amount of wonky lines that worked for me. And I did, at the very end, realize, if I put the stem in first, it doesn't come out looking like it's just pointing the wrong direction. Play around with it. Don't worry about it. Enjoy wonky pumpkins. If you decide to share your wonky pumpkins on social media to encourage others to reclaim their creativity and practice creative self-care, tag me. I'm Melinda Van Rye on Instagram and Melinda Van Rye Design on Facebook. You can also use the hashtag #ArtJournalWithMelinda. I would love to see your creativity, your beautiful blobs that are transformed into uniquely pumpkins. I did speed this section of the video up. I didn't just go in there and automatically draw in my lines. So keep that in mind if you're feeling like you're moving a little slowly and I'm just drawing them right in there. If you would like to be encouraged in your creative self-care journey with the 52-week art journal journey, you will find a link in the description to subscribe to my, at this point, weekly emails. There will probably be fewer as we move into the new year. But along with that, you will receive a link to join the private Art Journal Journey Facebook group. It's still really small, slowly growing. It's a great place to share your art and be encouraged and give you the opportunity to encourage others who are on this journey. Making the decision to make art every day with the 100-day project and my first art journal was transformative. Even though I didn't really know what an art journal was, that's okay. Art journal, making art and words. There are no rules in art journaling. And if you are familiar with Instagram art journalers and other YouTube art journalers, you may think my art journal is a little simple, and that's okay because I'm not competing with them, and my art is my art. And this art isn't about the product. It's about taking time to make art. Your art journal is as private as you want it to be. It's the perfect place to experiment and express yourself in whatever way you want, without fear of what others will think. Yes, I brought up sharing on social media, but that is completely up to you. I share mine, even some of the stuff that I look at and think, wow, I don't know if I really want to share that with the world. Because I want to encourage you to reclaim your creativity and practice creative self-care. We're not as healthy as we could be if we're not giving ourselves opportunity to exercise our creativity in ways we enjoy and are meaningful to us. Making art is not a waste of time, even if you never show it to anyone. But as I said, I would love to see your creativity. I will be back next week with another small art and journaling prompt. In the meantime, enjoy making your own beautiful blobs into magnificently wonky pumpkins, or less wonky if, you have to be less wonky for your mental health. You can also check out past videos for more inspiration. Thank you for the opportunity to encourage you to reclaim your creativity and establish a healthy habit of creative self-care. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, share. I very much enjoy a friendly comment. They are few and far between because my channel is small, and that's okay. I am glad that you are here today and hope that means that you have decided to take some time to practice creative self-care. For those of you who noticed the poor little guy who didn't get pumpkined before I turned the page, here you go. One thing I forgot to mention, that's kind of important, is we need to let our beautiful blobs dry before we transform them into beautifully wonky or just plain beautiful, unique pumpkins. So get out your watercolors, paint some beautiful blobs, have fun, relax. Enjoy practicing creative self-care.